Time to talk about Balochistan. Oh boy. All the Pakistani leftists that have loved me so far are now going to hate my take on this. Fantastic. I've talked to Donnie recently, and a lot of his friends, he's told me that a lot of his friends like me. Like, obviously, I've had Amar Ali John on the show before. I think Mehru Bawan follows me. Shahzad Ghias knows about me, so on and so forth. So they're absolutely not going to like my opinion on this. But let's go ahead.
Police say gunmen targeted patrols and checkpoints in several districts, torching vehicles and opening fire before retreating. Security personnel, fighters and civilians were killed, some of them children.
The sound of gunfire was heard. As soon as my cousin stepped outside the house, he was hit by a bullet. Gunshots were still going on. Wherever you go, you will find these attackers. There is no one to hold them accountable.
The attacks were later claimed by the Balochistan Liberation Army, an armed group that has fought a long-running insurgency against the Pakistani state. Balochistan is Pakistan's largest province and one of its most resource-rich, home to vast gas reserves, mineral wealth and a strategic coastline.
But it's also Pakistan's poorest province. How did that happen? It is Pakistan's resource-rich provinces, but it's also its poorest province.
But it is also among the country's poorest, and separatist
Rewatched.
groups accuse the central government of exploiting its resources while marginalizing local communities. The government says security forces have vowed to respond with force to the attacks.
This is my promise to you, Minister, standing with me. I will avenge every drop of blood. God willing, you have to keep your courage and strength high.
Pakistani officials blame neighboring India for supporting armed groups in the region. Accusation.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Pakistan blames India for arming BLA and BLF. India blames Pakistan for arming Kashmiri militants. Yada, 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 yada. Okay, man. They're calling it Fitna ul Hind. I don't know what the that means. Pakistanis, when pressed on Kashmir, they will immediately say, well, there are two camps of Pakistanis. One are the Pakistani leftists that are correctly able to analyze the atrocities of the Indian state against Kashmiris, the military occupation of the Indian government of Kashmiris. They are basically able to correctly recognize that Kashmiris are under occupation. Now, the problem is when you bring up Balochistan, and the moment you say, hey, listen, the BLA and the BLA's attacks and the BLA's ongoing activities against the Pakistani state like this are a response to the perpetual oppression, the enforced kidnappings that the Pakistani state engages in against the Baloch population, including Mahrang's father, by the way. Mahrang Baloch is in prison. The moment you bring this up to Pakistanis, they will immediately shut their brain off. The Pakistani leftists, they'll shut their brains off. And they'll immediately say they will not hold their own state to the same standard that they hold the Indian state to when the Indian state commits atrocities against Kashmiris. You do not ask a Pakistani leftist on Balochistan. The moment you ask them on Balochistan, they immediately start spouting talking points that might as well be Zionist talking points or a Hindu nationalist talking point, or actually forget Hindu nationalists, Indian civic nationalist talking points. Do Pakistani leftists also stand in solidarity with the rights of Kashmir to exist as a sovereign state? Yes. I mean, at least principled Pakistani leftists do that. But they absolutely do not hold the same standard for Balochistan. Some do and some don't. Actually, that's probably a better accurate situation. The other camp of Pakistanis that talk about Kashmir are just psychos. They're right-wing psychos that just want Kashmir for themselves. That's the other kind of Pakistani that talks about Kashmir. It's psychos that just want the entire land for themselves and do not actually respect. They do not think that Pakistan is occupying Kashmir either. Whereas if you ask actual Kashmiris, by the way, we have Kashmiri leftists in the community. If you ask actual Kashmiris, they will tell you both India and Pakistan are occupying Kashmir. It's not just India, and also China too. 3 countries are occupying Kashmiri territory. But when it comes to Balochistan, that's when they immediately turn into the most right-wing psychopaths imaginable. What's with these 3 country occupations, whether Kashmir, Balochistan, Kurdistan? Dude, resources, baby. No, like you bring up Kashmir to India dick riders. You know the deal. You bring up any sort of territory, any disputed / occupied territory to citizens, normal citizens of that particular state, then they'll lose their mind. Talk about Kashmir to CPIM. See what their response is. Talk about Kashmir to Indian liberals. Same deal here. You talk about Balochistan to Pakistani liberals and Pakistani leftists. See what the response is. Oh yeah, what about BLA? What about BLA? What about BLA? Okay, we condemn BLA. Does that mean Pakistan gets to glass Balochistan? All that academic resiliency, all of that understanding of material conditions gets chucked out of the fucking window. They find any goddamn excuse in the fucking book to malign Baloch people in general. That is what Pakistani leftists and Pakistani liberals do. Oh, the BLA are ethno-nationalists. That's another excuse that they'll come up. Like, I haven't heard that before. By the way, for the record, is it true that Sangis, just despite Pakistani support of an independent Kashmir, they'll just bring up Balochistan? 100%. It's true that Indian right-wingers and Indian liberals will bring up Balochistan as a cudgel. It's true. It absolutely is true. And it's true that some psycho Israelis were like, hey, let's try and do some research on, it was like the Memory TV Institute. It was like Zionist propaganda that was like, hey, why don't we do some research on Balochistan, blah, blah, blah. Right? It's true. At the same time, does that mean the legitimate grievances of the Baloch population aren't real? That's the thing that these people don't ever want to understand. No. BLA, condemn BLA. Do you condemn BLA? It's the same idiotic talking point you hear from other citizens of other countries. You talk about Rohingya people with people from Myanmar. What do they say? Do you condemn the Rohingya terrorists? They immediately come out and say, do you condemn the Rohingya militants? It's the same tactic. It doesn't matter what country you go to, which is why you do not place your faith in any nation state. Your default position should always be to question the nation. Every single government is lying to you, whether it's the American government, whether it's the Indian government, whether it's the Russian government, whether it's the Chinese government. Every government, whether it's especially when it's the Israeli government, whether it's the Iranian government, whether it's the Pakistani government, whether it's the Bangladeshi government, whether it's the Japanese government, whether it's the Korean government, whether it's the Vietnamese government, whether it's the Thai government. They're all lying to you, whether it's the Ukrainian government, whether it's the Czech government, whether it's the Norwegian government, whether it's the Malian government. They're all lying to you. There is no such thing as a good nation state. Again, the atrocious attacks that the BLA have engaged in with regards to killing Saraiki farmers and Punjabi farmers, it's wrong. No one is denying that. But for you to use that as an example, Pakistanis, as to why increased military presence in Balochistan is necessary, it makes you no different than the Hindu nationalists in India. It makes you no different than the Indian civic nationalists. You are the same. BLA claims that more than 150 Pakistani soldiers have been killed so far. How many Baloch people have the Pakistani army kidnapped? How many Baloch students have the Pakistani government kidnapped in Lahore, in Multan, in Karachi? Who the are you people to lecture the Baloch people? You people have kidnapped Baloch left and right. Fun fact, the Pakistani government have assassinated, actually prior to India assassinating the Khalistan guy, they assassinated a Baloch journalist in Sweden, allegedly. And Pakistanis have the nerve to talk about Balochistan. This got zero press from anyone. Maybe in Sweden, the Canadian case was messy, was because it happened in Canada. The reason it got that much press is because it happened in Canada, not Sweden. If that case happened in Sweden, it would also fly under the radar. This was before the Sikh assassination. You guys love talking about the BLA, but no one ever wants to talk about the amount of disappearances and the amount of wealth extraction that the Pakistani state has engaged in against the Baloch people. If you were someone that wanted to reduce the amount of separatism that exists in your country, you would be doing everything you can, in olive branch that you can. And everything that I'm saying to Pakistan also applies to India. Just flip the script. And it also applies to Sri Lanka too. And it also applies to Bangladesh too. I wasn't aware of this overseas assassination. For the record, all the Pakistanis and all the fucking Indians that swear you guys are different based on religion, you need to take a fucking good look in the mirror. Because you are not convincing the planet that Pakistan and India are fucking different. You are not beating the fucking twins allegation. We just, last week, we talked about Iman Mazari. Iman Mazari Hazir and her husband being sentenced to 11 years by the Pakistani state because of a tweet. Now, the tweet is just the impetus for that arrest. But the real reason the Pakistani government has been wanting to get rid of her is because of her advocacy for the Baloch. That's the real reason the Pakistani government has wanted to get her in jail as soon as possible. Yes, she's been disappeared. Iman has also been disappeared apparently now. Operation Herav continues after 35 hours. Deputy Commissioner Mohammed Hussein Hazara. Oh, that's so disappointing. Operation Herav Phase 2 continues with full intensity across Balochistan even after 35 hours. Freedom fighters continue to have strong control over several places, including Shal and Loshki, where enemies' military and administrative presence has been repelled. Fighters are still present in many areas and occupying forces are facing decisive power and defeat. Meanwhile, Deputy Commissioner Noshki Mohammed Hussein Hazara and Assistant Commissioner Maria Shamu, who were arrested by Baloch Liberation Army fighters, have been released. These officers were released on humanitarian grounds because Baloch Liberation Army has no direct enmity with police, levies, or local civil administration. Baloch Liberation Army has repeatedly made it clear in its policy that if police or local forces do not resist freedom fighters, they will not be harmed. Honorable release of these officers is practical proof of this policy. They let them go because they're police and not army. Listen, man, I don't trust the BLA either. The BLA are a militant organization. They are going to do up shit. Militant organizations often do up shit. They're militant organizations. That's what they are. No one likes the fact that these militant organizations exist. But we have to assess why they exist in the first place and fix that, which no one in Pakistan really wants to do. If you want the BLA to go away, you have to fix the underlying problem. Maybe don't create the conditions to allow something like the BLA to exist. You can't brutalize a group of people like the Baloch for decades on end and not expect people to get radicalized. This is my appeal to Pakistani leftists. If you are able to understand the conditions that allow other militant organizations in other countries to exist, then you should be able to recognize that your government is creating conditions that allow militant organizations like the BLA to exist. You all know that despite Balochistan being one of the most materially wealthy provinces in the country, you also know that the Baloch are some of the poorest people in the country on average. How did that happen? This is what I think Operation Haraf was for. I think it's a PR campaign for BLA. I saw the video, people were cheering for BLA. There are psyops that are acting as like Baloch people, like Mir Yar Baloch is a great example of probably an Indian run account, right? Or some foreign operatives that are running defense for Baloch people. I'll give you another great example of this. There are lots of bad surreptitious actors trying to co-opt this. Sure. That are trying to co-opt the Baloch liberation movement, okay? Did you know that American Nazis are trying to co-opt the Palestinian movement? Nazis are. There's always going to be bad actors, regardless of the actual movement. Anti-Semites, white nationalists are co-opting the current anti-Israel sentiment, the current anti-Zionist sentiment. So what, does that mean anti-Zionism is bad all of a sudden? My point more so is about analyzing why they did this attack. Also, people have claimed the army tucked their tails between their legs and ran to their safe zone in other places too. I know a lot of Pakistanis that watch this. I know a lot of Pakistanis that watch this, that watch the VOD from this, are going to immediately accuse me of being a raw agent. Even though I've literally gone on Hassan's program to talk about Kashmir. Doesn't matter. I've done what no Indian will do. I've done what no Indian leftist will do. I've gone on an American podcast or an American Twitch broadcast, the largest one, to talk about Kashmir. Still, once this VOD goes up, people are going to be like, I see raw agent, raw agent, raw agent, raw agent, raw agent, raw agent. What raw agent is going to talk about Kashmir? This is what I fear. I feel like Pakistan has the same kind of brainworms. They were calling you that when you were talking about Kashmir. On what planet can you call me a raw agent? What kind of brainworms do you have to think I'm a raw agent? Bro, I'm ISI agent on Sundays, raw agent on Mondays. Dude, both Indians and Pakistanis have brainworms. Both of y'all have brainworms. No, Sunday it's ISI agent, Monday it's raw agent, Tuesday it's LTTE. That's what I am. Divided by borders, united by brainworms. Fucking hell, man. How much are all these intelligence agencies paying you? 10 lakh Pakistani rupees, so it's like $2. Okay, got it.
How will Pakistan deal with growing security challenges in the southwestern province of Balochistan? Another coordinated attack by separatists has killed dozens of people. Many ethnic Baloch have long complained of neglect and oppression by Islamabad. So what will
the funny thing is, like, Indians will say, oh yeah, the Kashmiri militants are getting weapons from Pakistan. And my response to that is, okay, so who the expect them to get weapons from then, huh? Yeah, of course they're gonna grab weapons from Pakistan. But then my thing is also the same thing to Pakistan. Pakistanis will accuse BLA of getting weapons from India. Okay, who else do you expect them to get weapons from? Oh, you want them to be like the folks in Burma where they're literally 3D printing their guns? The folks in Myanmar right now, where they're literally 3D printing their guns, really? Yes. Should we litigate the ethics of buying weapons for resistance? Dude, leftists, I think a lot of leftists have a lot of brainworms. I think people that simp for states have insane brainworms. Wait, to be fair, the kooky separatist militants are getting weapons from the Indian state? First off, they're not kooky separatists. They want a separate Indian state. They want to be part of India. That's how they're getting weapons from India. They don't want a separate country. Wait, to be fair, the Métis separatist militants are getting weapons from the Indian state. Kookies aren't getting them. Yeah, but the Métis are in power. So of course they're getting weapons. The Métis are in power in Manipur. Of course they're getting weapons. The Métis separatists are connected to folks like Biren Singh. That's how they're getting the weapons.
It take to end the cycle of violence there? Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Marlene Saeed. It's called Pakistan's Forgotten War, and it's been running for decades in Balochistan, the country's largest province by land area. Another wave of violence this week has claimed the lives of more than...
Pakistanis will be against the military occupation of their country until Balochistan comes up. The moment Balochistan comes up, that's when they're like, oh, everything's okay. Then they immediately start simping for the state. Until then, they're like, oh, well, no, we live under military occupation. We live under military occupation. We live under military occupation. Until Balochistan gets brought up. Again, not justifying any of the civilian casualties that the BLA is engaged in. But I'm talking about the fact that the humanity of the Baloch people are thrown out the moment Balochistan gets brought up. People were cheering when 700K Afghans were packed in shipping containers and violently sent to Afghanistan. By the way, did you know by the book and by law, the Assam Rifles have the right to officially arrest Hemant Biswa Sarma, like right now? Yeah, but they won't do that.
The Balochistan Liberation Army, also known as the BLA, has claimed responsibility for the attacks described.
Also, the hate the Pashtuns get is so sad. KP was bombed by America. Still somehow no sympathy. Pashtuns are probably the Pashtuns, Chitralis, and the various peoples of KP, of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They're the foremost victims of American imperialism in Pakistan. Still somehow, when, KP gets brought up, no sympathy towards Pashtuns. I don't know how. They literally ethnically displaced the entire Tira Valley last week.
As the deadliest so far. The BLA has escalated its attacks in recent years, saying it's fighting for an independent Balochistan. In Islamabad, the government accuses what it calls its enemies for the violence carried out.
Also, fun fact, Balochistan, there's a province called Sistan and Balochistan in Iran. Take a wild guess as to what the poorest province in Iran is. They're also the poorest. How did that happen? It's resource rich, but also very poor. How the did that happen? The reason separatist movements exist in the first place is because the political space to negotiate for rights between the state and an oppressed minority has been completely closed. That is the reason separatist movements exist. The window for negotiation has been closed by the state. There are very few situations where separatist movements are 100% astroturf. In most cases, separatist movements exist because of material conditions.
by armed separatists. We will discuss this complex situation in Balochistan with our guests in just a moment, but first, Imogen Kimber has this report.
The aftermath of one of the many coordinated attacks across Balochistan province in Pakistan on Saturday. Dozens of people were killed, along with military personnel. Targets included a prison, police stations, and government buildings. Nearly 100 members of the separatist group, which claimed responsibility for the attack, were also killed in fighting with security forces. The Balochistan Liberation Army, or BLA, operate not just from within Balochistan province, but from Baloch areas in southern Afghanistan and southeastern Iran, carrying out attacks in southwestern Pakistan. They want an end to governance from Islamabad and an independent state for the ethnic Baloch people. Despite being rich in resources and its strategic location, the province is the poorest in Pakistan. Apart from government and security facilities, the group has also targeted projects funded by China. In 2025,
they're CIA ops.
Apart from
CIA ops, they're against China, so they must be CIA ops.
Government and security facilities, the group is also...
Who are? No. The BLA, no. A lot of people will say that the BLA are, I'm joking. I don't think the BLA are CIA ops. The reason that people might say that the BLA are CIA ops is because a lot of the projects that they're attacking are Chinese-backed projects. They're CPEC projects. Now, the thing is, the bigger problem here is that Pakistan is extracting the wealth of Balochistan and not redistributing it back to the people. They are monopolizing it. The biggest landlords of Pakistan are the army. The projects here happen to be backed by China. But because the projects here happen to be backed by China, people will go ahead and say, no, actually, BLA are CIA ops.
Also targeted projects funded by China. In 2025, they hijacked a train, taking hundreds of people hostage. Dozens were killed. The BLA are designated as a terrorist group by the US, China, the UK, the EU, and Pakistan. Pakistan has accused India of backing the BLA for many years, but New Delhi has denied this.
Wasn't Trump also investing in Balochistan for minerals? Canada is.
Chief Minister of Balochistan has vowed revenge for this attack.
We will avenge each and every attack that you have suffered. Keep your morale high. We will not spare the attackers.
The minister says additional attacks were stopped, and around 70 fighters were killed in 2 operations in the days before the attack, and more than 700 over the past year. Yet the decades-long fight of the separatists shows no signs of stopping. Imogen Kimber, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
What is this? Is this another thing that we...
An audacious attack by the Baloch Liberation Army across 12 different locations across this province, which is Pakistan's largest province area-wise. Now, the attackers were also able to strike at the heart of the provincial capital, Quetta. Armed fighters were able to enter not just into the city, but also blocked major highways, stopping traffic in its tracks. The casualties are high. As you can see, this is the remains of a police vehicle that was torched by the attackers.
Yes, they hit Quetta, Pakistan, yes.
Several security forces personnel, including policemen and civilians, have been killed.
They want us to surrender. We will not. This country is ours. This is our motherland.
The country certainly doesn't seem to view you as an equal citizen. This guy's a joke. No, I know he is. Sarfaraz Bukti is a literal plant. He's an extreme bootlicker of the Pakistani state.
We'll fight for it.
It must be understood that the Baloch Liberation Army was a banned group by the United States in 2006.
Dude, I love how everyone is bringing up that it's a US designated terrorist organization. Like, they're trying to get Americans, they're obviously trying to get Americans to be like, oh, okay, so these guys are bad then. Every time I've seen anyone say, oh, it's a US designated terrorist organization, it is always to get American watchers to be like, oh, these guys suck. It's a thought terminating cliche. It's a way of getting Americans to be like, okay, so these guys suck. Pakistan must be right. For all the Kashmiris in the audience.
And categorized as a terrorist outfit. The Baloch Liberation Army has stepped up attacks against Pakistani security forces over the past few months. The United Nations and even China.
And also, yes, Pakistan just joined the Board of Peace to kiss Trump's ass, by the way. And my guess is they want American weapons to stop this. Shehbaz Sharif has joined the Board of Peace to lick Trump's dick and get more weapons.
He's raised alarm saying that the Afghan government needs to tackle these outfits who are working from Afghan soil. Pakistan has also complained to Afghanistan.
Also, what reason does the Taliban have to support these guys, the BLA? The BLA are not an Islamist outfit. They're not even remotely in line with Afghanistan. I would imagine that the Taliban also sees these guys as a threat.
For not doing enough to stop these groups from operating out of Afghan soil. The city of Quetta is at a standstill.
No one is safe. Anyone who leaves home has no certainty of returning safe and sound. There is a constant fear over whether they will come back unharmed. Business was already slow due to the cold weather, and when such incidents occur, chaos follows, forcing people to shut their shops and return home.
This is not the first time that the city has come under attack, but it is by far one of the deadliest. Kamal Haider, Al Jazeera, Quetta.
Not Taliban is sort of pretending to be with them so that Pakistan suffers. They have an on-again off deal. No, the point that I'm making is that Taliban and these guys in the BLA are not permanent allies. There's no way they can be permanent allies. The BLA are not pro whatever the Taliban is for. They just happen to be pointing their guns at the same people at the moment. That's it.
The BLA appear to have transformed themselves from what was once a tribal militia into a professional fighting force. Would you agree with that assessment? And if so, how did that happen?
Well, BLA's rise has been very visible, especially in the last 10 years. And it's not just because it is a military development, because it's also the peculiar political development in Balochistan. The more suppression that the state has used, the more disappointed the people have got. I mean, what is very peculiar is the kind of support they've got from the people. That is significant. I mean, for them, for BLA, recruitment no longer is a problem. And they have expanded their influence. This is where we stand today.
If I could come to you, Rashid, I don't think you would argue with the fact that insurgency is now geographically bigger than it ever was, more sophisticated than it ever was. Recruitment is clearly not a problem. Is this down to the current strategy of using force by the government? Is that now failing rather than focusing on dialogue?
Damn, who knew? Who knew? What a revelation. Who knew that brutalizing an entire population will actually radicalize them to join a militant outfit? We've never seen that in history before, have we? Certainly, Tamils have never joined the LTTE because of the brutalization that the Sri Lankan state engaged against them. Maharang Baloch and BYC warned these people for months. If you want an actual solution, you have to come to the negotiating table. And what did Pakistan do? They jailed Maharang Baloch, they jailed Iman Mazari, and they jailed her husband. And now they've disappeared all three of them. So is it any surprise that the BLA is now bigger than ever? That how do I know, boss?
No, I don't agree with this formulation. I think it's.
I'm glad he doesn't agree with that. I don't think this formulation is correct because it's actually the bloody Baloch's fault. The Pakistani army can do nothing wrong. I think your question is actually anti-national.
Internally abetted insurgency and. The BLA.
Oh, former brigadier in Pakistan's army. Oh, there it is. Say less.
Activists whom we now call Fitnatul Hindustan. Those.
Oh, man. Oh, dude. Dude. Pakistanis are not beating the Indian allegations. I'm sorry. Same brainworms. Same idiotic post-colonial nationalist brainworms
are acting as the proxies of Indians, and they have no shortage of arms, no shortage of.
Everything is India's fault, man. Everything is India's fault. Just like when Indians blame everything that's happening in Kashmir on you. I know this exact same playbook. Tell me how you're any different than BJP. You're the same kind of right-wing pricks. You're the same kind of right-wing pricks that Congress and BJP are. Indians say the same thing about Kashmir. They say, well, actually, that the entirety of the Kashmiri insurgency is Pakistan's fault. Pakistan. You guys are saying the same about Balochistan in India. Does that change the material conditions for Baloch people? No, it doesn't. It does not change a goddamn thing. And by the way, we know for a goddamn fact that these were saying the same shit about Mukti Bahini in 1971. These craven, wretched motherfuckers were saying the same shit about Mukti Bahini in 1971. As your country committed a wholesale genocide of Bengalis in 1971, in 1971, as your army with collaborators, the Razakars in Bangladesh, were mass raping Bengali women and executing them in cold blood, 3 million of them. You were saying the same shit. Shut your goddamn unk-ass mouth up. Shut the up. Arun, I genuinely appreciate your coverage, but this drama is kind of detrimental, isn't it, when you want to convince other unks to rationalize this? It's not drama, dude. What drama? Do you realize how many fucking times I hear this from so many fucking people? Whether it's Indian, whether it's Sri Lankan, whether it's Pakistan, it's a little reactionary. No, it's not. It's ridiculous that people are not able to see things with clarity. That's where my frustration comes from. It's that leftists on both sides of the fucking border are unable to see with clarity what the real ground material situation is for people. Instead, they get wrapped up in nationalist bullshit. We need to imagine better ways, at least, man. That's what I am trying to do. Yelling helps the opposition strawman. No, you don't. No, man. I'm sorry. Dude, you're misunderstanding the situation. This is a plea for sanity from my end. I'm begging people on both sides of the border to realize that border was made 80 years ago. Why did MLK not yell? What? It gets worse. I don't know. The Baloch here say the same racist shit about Hazars and how they did something to deserve the oppression that they get. There isn't even unity among poor Afghans, Hazara, and Baloch. It's so bad. But that's the thing. That's the thing that sucks. Hazaras, Afghans, and Baloch are in a very similar situation. They all live under. That's why I said it's so disappointing that there's a constable with the name Hazara. I was like, dude, why are you serving the state? That's why it was it's so disappointing to see Baloch people, Hazaras, and people of these marginalized ethnic groups be part of the very same apparatus that is oppressing all of them. It's so disappointing. I know nothing about the Baloch people and that their material conditions, but I know enough about Arun that if he's this angry about something, a clear injustice is being committed, and I must learn more about it. I have the same kind of anger for Balochistan that I do for Kashmir that I do for Elam. It is a group of people that are being brutalized by a state. That should be more than enough to be extremely angry. What further infuriates me about this entire situation is that Indians basically do the exact same thing, the same exact playbook that Pakistanis do, and vice versa. And neither of the leftists on either side are capable of understanding what is going on. Then what? What are we to do? If Indian leftists are selective about their outrage, if Pakistani leftists are selective about their outrage, then that's it. There's no international leftist movement. It's gone. Take it and throw it away. Every leftist advocating on any public platform is useless. They're just tooting their own horn at this point. There's no sense of internationalism at this point. And it's exactly what Bracelet Block is saying. It's extremely important to note. It's precisely these blind spots that these leftists have that the states are exploiting, because there's actually no solidarity among different marginalized groups among the left. These states are able to divide everyone.
And you can see a terrorist who is equipped with M16 and laser-guided aiming systems, night vision goggles, which cost millions. And from where are they getting this money? I think there is a whole trail of proxy warfare, organized crime, and
Rashid, if I could interrupt you briefly, what we are seeing now is a movement that is recruiting educated middle-class professionals, engineers, students, even doctors and teachers from within the Balochistan region. How do you explain that? If you keep pointing the finger to India, why are they recruiting people from within the state?
You see, they have been exploiting in the past. There were certain ungoverned spaces and the sanctuaries in Afghanistan, they provide a safe haven to them. Then prior to our interaction with Iran, there was a whole network operating from Chabahar, which was being run by RAW. I agree that there are educated people who are getting on the bandwagon, and the inducements are there, of course. The negative indoctrination is there, and there are.
Notice how he has not mentioned once about, at least yet, he has not mentioned Baloch Yakjehti Committee. He has not mentioned BYC. He has not mentioned Marang Baloch. He's not mentioned Iman Mazari.
Always people who are more vulnerable to such blandishments, such blackmails, and such, coercion. I agree that some have been weaned towards the insurgents' cause, but these are the numbers are not that much.
Oh, really? BLA is operating at a higher capacity now than more than ever. It's just randomly they're doing it. Okay.
Primarily, the bulk of the population is with Pakistan and Pakistan's armed forces, and they have not been won over by the poisonous propaganda of BLA. It is.
He's right. He's right. Most of the Pakistani population, they're against the army until Balochistan gets brought up. That's when they immediately turn.
External support.
I think he means most of Balochistan's population.
Is sustaining this insurgency.
If I could let Sanwala respond to that. So the government says, Sanwala, that India is the problem. India is funding the BLA. All its problems are external. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, we have to understand the genesis of the Balochistan crisis and the conflict itself. Without understanding the conflict, crisis, and the 75 history of Baloch-Pakistan relation, it's going to be very difficult because it's not just yesterday's events what triggered this discussion. There are historical, political, economic extraction, underdevelopment, and more recently, the governance crisis that has led to Balochistan to this level of scenario, this level of situation where BLA as a one act sorted to the political violence because overall the people of Balochistan are unhappy with the way Islamabad is treating Balochistan. Balochistan, if you, for your international audience, would like to explain it, it's a region with comparable human development index with South Sudan, which is lowest in the world, and comparable human development indicators with...
By the way, South Sudan, for the record, there's a huge humanitarian crisis happening in South Sudan. If I'm not mistaken, there's still a war going on in South Sudan between the faction of the president and the faction of the vice president. Not the faction, but these are ethnic militants between the Nur and Dinka. So people are starving in South Sudan. There's a huge humanitarian crisis in South Sudan.
Central African Republic. Lowest level of underdevelopment, no infrastructure, no access to electricity, no access to gas, which we have been producing since 1955. The Pakistan entire industry, its electricity, its infrastructure, its economy, what we see today, is because of the Balochistan natural resources. The people have been deprived, and unfortunately, at the federal government level, there's a total denial, ignorance, and that ignorance has created this level of, like what Aisha said, that there's no recruitment problem. People are dissatisfied. People have great grievances against the federal government. The way...
Did he mention that Pakistan is sending weapons to Sudan? No, he's saying that the Human Development Index of Balochistan is comparable to that of South Sudan.
It's like a new colonial style approach to deal with the Balochistan crisis. So without understanding that, it's going to be difficult to understand the overall conflict. It's what they call it, expansion. More recently, it happened.
Okay.
And the Pakistan and the federal government, along with the respectfully disagree with the Brigadier Saab, they have to understand all these. Outside, because the Islamabad itself has created an injustice, and that unjust society has created a political vacuum.
Okay, let me turn to Ayesha. Ayesha, does Sanwala make a valid point here? Because you often have the government framing this as a security problem. But when you bring in the historical grievances and the identity problems, how crucial is that to understanding why this insurgency is going on?
You know, firstly, with the recent attacks, it needs to be understood that it is an intelligence failure. I mean, if the government is so arrogant and the state is so arrogant and feels that it controls, that the bulk of the Baloch are actually with the government, then how come this, military failure, intelligence failure? 37 attacks, north, south, east, west, all of Balochistan has been attacked. In fact, Quetta, which is the main central city, the militants have penetrated.
By the way, just for the record, in case you didn't realize, because a lot of people don't know this, Quetta is not a Baloch majority city. And the largest ethnic group in Quetta are Pashtuns, not Baloch. So like she's saying here, the fact that the BLA was able to conduct an attack in Quetta, she's technically right. It's a huge intelligence failure on Pakistan. She's right in that the Pakistani army is extremely arrogant.
Quetta city. And in fact,
they did it in the red zone as well. Yes.
Quetta cantonment had to be sealed to secure it. Now, the problem is that, yes, I agree with where the point which Sanawala is making.
But with Quetta being majority Pashtun, that doesn't that impact provincial demographics and political representation? So my understanding is, I think one of the reasons that Quetta is the capital is precisely because it isn't a Baloch majority city. But I could be wrong about that. But the Baloch are concentrated actually further in the south, among the coasts. Like Gwadar is a great example. Yes, it was Kalat before Pakistan took over. Okay, so I was correct. So Quetta was made the capital of Balochistan precisely because it was not a Baloch majority city. And it was also because the Brits loved Quetta a lot. But Quetta is not a Baloch majority city. It is a Pashtun plurality city. And it also has a significant population of Hazaras that fled to Pakistan after Afghanistan Emir Abdurrahman Khan's genocide of the Hazaras in Afghanistan. And yes, Quetta had great infrastructure for colonial occupation as well. And Kalat, a majority Brahui / Baloch city. I think it's mostly Brahui. I think Kalat is majority Brahui. I could be wrong about that. Brahui are also Baloch. It's a bit more complicated than that. There are some people that are beginning to identify as Brahui specifically and not Baloch. But yes, a good chunk of people that speak the Brahui language identify as Baloch. The identity is a bit more complicated than that. But yes, you're correct. I have a question. Outside of the resource extractions and the violent occupation by the Pakistani government is engaging in Balochistan, are they also engaging in settler colonialism as well? Not to my knowledge. Again, I could be wrong. Yeah, I was correct. They're not engaging in settler colonialism in the same way that Sri Lanka is engaging in settler colonialism against Tamils. They're not yet. And I think it's a very similar situation to India. India has not totally begun settler colonialism of the Kashmir Valley quite yet.
You know, I'll give you another example. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which when signed in 2016 was meant to be a game changer. Balochistan had 7% share in it, out of which only $200 million were actually invested in Balochistan. Pakistan's industry, bulk of it, which is based in Punjab, natural gas is taken from Balochistan and subsidized for private sector in Punjab. So it's trillions of rupees which is taken from Balochistan and invested there. So the grievances are certainly there. And what you have on the other hand is a military and a state which is arrogant, which thinks it can bring modernity.
She's 1,000% right here. She's right.
Can tame people without creating opportunities with them. And lastly, let me say that there has been failure of the state to engage in a dialogue. There is the Baloch Jagjati Committee, BYC, which is asking for constitutional right of the Baloch to be tried in courts. I mean, their argument is, if we are involved in insurgency, if there are militancy, if there are terrorists from amongst us, try us in the courts. Don't make them disappear. Don't abduct them.
Okay,
So there is a parapolitical movement.
Ayesha, you raise a number of good points. If I could come to you, Rashid. Let's start with the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, also known as CPEC. We have seen an investment initiative worth billions of dollars by China in this particular part of Pakistan. Why is it that the locals are not seeing any of the benefits? Where are the jobs? Why are they not involved in what is going on there?
I'm almost positive he's going to be like, well, if only the BLA weren't in the way.
You see, I don't agree with most of the arguments adduced by.
Or he's also going to outright deny. China brings their people's workers, don't they? Yes. Yes, most of the workers in Balochistan that are part of CPEC are Chinese.
Respected panelists. You see, it's very fashionable to lay all blame on state and raise the bogey of grievances. Now, state has done its best to assuage the grievances, and
it's very fashionable to blame the government. You peons don't understand how much the government is working for you. You peons, you tiny-brained peons, you simpletons, don't understand how hard the government is working for you. You don't understand how hard the outpost of the CIA is working to help the Baloch people.
Present development spending 3 to 4 billion rupees in every district purely on merit. That shows the public goods and the service delivery that is being provided. That's
another thing that I love about Pakistan, or with regards to Pakistanis in general. They love to fed jacket the Baloch. Meanwhile, the CIA literally helped your country commit a genocide of Bengalis. Who the are you calling CIA ops, motherfucker? Your entire state is an outpost of the CIA. Bro, 3 million Bengalis are dead because of your country and the CIA's. Afghanistan is in ruin is currently in ruins because of ISI and the CIA. 3, actually. Because you've also ruined Pakistan. They've also ruined Pakistan itself.
I can show you much deprived areas and areas which are as low on HD.
Okay, well, we can't.
But unfortunately, since 1948, we have Pakistan. There were promises made to them that the region will get equal and just benefit from this newly established nation state that's called Pakistan. But unfortunately, since 1948, we have multiple 5-year development plans. In all those plans, Balochistan was deliberately kept underdeveloped. Balochistan was kept deliberately deprived from such development processes because Balochistan has been weighted in the Pakistani framework, in the Pakistani political representative framework, based on the parameter is population. So Baloch people definitely they are not in many in terms of numbers. They are 6 to 7% of the country's Pakistan's population. During the CPEC project, Baloch people have justly asked and demanded that since Balochistan has been deliberately kept under development, so whatever development is coming, Balochistan and even rest of the Pakistan, because we have a Western Rim that's undeveloped, including some parts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, they should get priority. But unfortunately, if you see on their website, all these projects of $25 billion crisscross only central.
Is this guy going to be safe? Probably not. Did you know in 1950s, RAW and ISI used to work together to suppress communist insurgency with CIA backing? Oh, I'm aware. Did you know that the Kashmiri insurgency movement, the Kashmir independence movement used to be leftist? Did you know it used to be socialist leaning? And then both India and Pakistan killed that? I bet a lot of people didn't know that. There's a common association nowadays with Kashmiri militants being right-wing Muslim fundamentalists. And that is the case. right? The vast majority of Kashmiri militants now are right-wing reactionary fundamentalist, Muslim fundamentalists. That is the case today. But at one point in history, it used to be leftist. How do you think right-wing reactionaries take a place in resistance organizations? Because leftist movements are systematically killed. It does not matter. If there's any reason that right-wingers become prominent in resistance organizations or any militant organizations, it's because the leftists were killed. One of the foremost advocates of Kashmiri independence originally was a Kashmiri Pandit leftist by the name of Premnath Bazaz.
Punjab and some parts of Sindh. The transmission lines, power projects, energy projects, Orange Metro line, railway lines. In Balochistan only received one Gwadar Port initiative. That's around 700 million something. That's because Balochistan itself is lost.
Rashid, how would you
On
respond?
rest of the development projects, Balochistan was there's and out of that, whatever they produce from the
Bro, look at this guy's internet, man. Look at this man's internet versus the former brigadier general's internet.
700 million something. That's because Balochistan itself is lost.
Rashid, how would you
On
respond?
rest of the development projects, Balochistan was there's and out of that, whatever they produce from that energy from the power plants, Balochistan is not getting a single megawatt of electricity. Balochistan did not receive a single kilometer of transmission lines.
Yeah, we can see that. We can see that actually. But that's the funny thing. We can literally see that in real time. Look at how terrible this guy's internet connection is.
Did not get a single kilometer of motorway or highway. So we are ready to answer these all. Balochistan has never received what my Brigadier Saab mentioned, that Balochistan has received 3 to 4 billion each district. Such type of fancy claims have been in the past. But
bro, I hate to harp on this point, but you can see it in the internet connection. This dude's in Quetta, the other guy's in Islamabad, man. Bro's running a potato. Meanwhile, the other guy probably has like a stream deck somewhere and like a roadcaster or some shit. You can literally see the difference in resource allocation in real time.
Let's discuss and debate the real issue of the Balochistan. If the Pakistani Federation and the sensible people are willing to address these issues, so they have to accept that there has been mistakes. There has been a approach. The approach has been like not fair and just towards Balochistan.
Ayesha, I saw you nodding your head there.
Yeah,
yes, because I think
we have to take things in their proper perspective.
Okay, let Rashid
spending of CPEC. Are you asking me?
Okay, Rashid, finish your thought, and then I'll come back to you, Ayesha.
Okay, so I was saying that we have to see things in their true perspective. CPEC first phase was infrastructure, and in that there is a prong on from Zob, Mogalkot, Quetta. There are proper roads that have been constructed. There have been infrastructure projects. I don't know how Sanaullah Baloch Sahib is saying that nothing has been spent. I can count a number of projects from CPEC which have benefited Balochistan. Gwadar itself has the potential to change the whole complexion of the province. But the issue is that CPEC phase 2, which
he's going to blame BLA for this, isn't he?
Comprised special economic zones, is still not taken off the ground because of the security situation. And there are
there it is.
forces inimical to CPEC which do not wish CPEC to become a success. And those forces have put in their best to give a shot in the arm to this insurgency. Development, if we keep talking of the past and we keep quoting the figures which are outdated, I think we'll go nowhere. The real thing is that in the past,
Ayesha, how do you respond to that?
But now a lot has been done.
Oh, is that right?
Ayesha, how do you respond to that? Is Rashid right there? Are the Baluchis spending too much time looking to the past, or do they now need to look forward?
You know, the thing is that retired brigadier probably needs to read some history and understand. History can't be wished away. it's not just about Baloch wanting to separate from Pakistan. There were separatist movements in other parts of Pakistan as well, and which were there, and the bulk of the people engaged with the Pakistani state. That was happening.
Most notably, Mukti Bahini. For those of you who don't understand what Mukti Bahini is, that's the militant organization for Bangladesh. That was the Bengali militant organization that fought for an independent Bangladesh.
But things started to turn. Firstly, when the state with the military assassinated Nawab Akbar Bukti, and suddenly...
For those of you who don't know who Akbar Khan Bukti is, he was originally the chief minister of Balochistan. He was one of Pakistan's biggest supporters, especially during Operation Searchlight. He was that hopped up on Pakistani nationalism. He's himself Baloch. Akbar Bukti was a man that was super hopped up on Pakistani nationalism, especially when it came to Bengalis. But then what happened? Pakistan turned on him. This is the thanks that he got for being one of Pakistan's biggest supporters. He got assassinated.
It was a shock to the people that, a leader, a political leader who was part of the elite and who had always talked to the Pakistani state could be killed. Then what are the possibilities for others? And this is a myth, which is the state and, people supporting the state have created for themselves, that everything is, equally distributed amongst Balochistan and the rest of Pakistan. I think it's important to understand also, and for your audience, that Balochistan territorially is Pakistan's largest province. Of course, it has lesser population, but the development that it deserved and it doesn't get. And the other thing is that now the insurgency we're talking about, it's no longer controlled by the tribal leaders. It's middle-class Baloch who has been tortured, who has been picked up. I mean, Dr. Ala Nazar or Bashir Zaib and others, I am not sympathetic to the tactics, but the problem is that how can you engage with them in a conversation? There is a parallel economy of conflict which supports and which helps people who have been running the Balochistan province on behalf of the government. I mean, here are people who don't want any political dialogue, people in charge, like the Chief Minister Sarfaraz Bukti, or Anwarul Haq Kakar, who was caretaker prime minister. I mean, these are people and many others, this gang, which benefits from conflict, economy of conflict, rather than economy of dialogue and economy of peace. And this is where the problem lies, which actually makes people more upset. And it completely drains away any faith in dialogue. So it's not just history. It's a complex problem in which history has a part, but we also have to look at how disappointment has gradually set in the people. One last point, which I think it's important to make, and the dear brigadier might think about it. When women become part of the insurgency, women have become, there are women who have become suicide bombers, there are women who were in the recent attack, there are women who were participating in it. When do women actually participate in violence? When do they become active players? When they're so disappointed and when they suffer so much. There have been families and families and families. Women.
Guess what? Guess what other movement had prominent women fighters? Guess how that militant group also had managed to recruit a lot of women fighters? The Liberation Tigers of Tamariram, the LTTE. Why? It's because the women and their families were brutalized by the state for decades. They were raped by this, literally raped by the state when they were children. This is how you get to a situation where even women are joining the militancy. Naxalites as well, yes.
The sisters, wives, daughters, mothers who have lost their loved ones, and there is no recourse to justice. And it's this desperation which is egging people on towards violence.
Incredible. I don't know who this person is, but thank God for thank God she was on this panel. I was scared that she was going to support the Pakistani state and everything that they did. My God, thank God for some voice of reason here. Oh my God. I might not agree with her position on this, with her ultimate position on this, but she's spitting facts here. Aisha Siddiqa is an expert. Oh, okay, so she is an expert on the Pakistani army.
Sanawala, if I could come back to you on Ayesha's point, she talks about the economy of conflict and how that is a cycle of violence. When you look at the BLA's tactics, which now include suicide bombings and attacks on civilians, at what point does armed resistance risk alienating the very population it claims to represent?
Well, first of all, Melina, we don't endorse any political violence, and we don't endorse any violence or political violence both from the state and the non-state actors. But unfortunately, Balochistan has plunged into a crisis, into a conflict since last 25 years. Like Aisha mentioned, the conflict itself started in 2002. And I was part and parcel of the parliamentary committee on Balochistan. The Nawab Akbar Khan Bugti himself was martyred in 2006. We were very much interested and encouraged that the federal government should understand and realize the depth of the Balochistan conflict and the crisis itself to resolve it. There were certain recommendations as well. So today, definitely, when Nawab Akbar Khan Bugti was killed, most of the Baloch leadership was put behind the bars. All of us, we left Pakistan into exile. Because the governance system itself in the province is so polluted, manipulated, and engineered.
I don't know who Aisha Siddiqa is. I probably am going to agree with her on quite a bit. Based on what I've seen of her, probably agree with her on quite a bit.
The Union political parties are unable to participate in the political process or become part of the political process. So the youth is left in dilemma. So the 62% of Balochistan youth is definitely now desperate to join a political struggle, since the government of Pakistan is not allowing genuine political process within the province. So what is left for the youth? What is left for the girls? What is left for the deprived society? So 62% of the youth, somehow they are inclined to political violence. And I think Islamabad is blamed for this. Balochistan, people of Balochistan have tried their best in last 75 years, many times, to give this a clear understanding and message Pakistan to don't wait based on our population. Balochistan has a very important geopolitical position in this region. Balochistan has economic potential. Balochistan was part and parcel of Pakistan, not based on population. Balochistan was given a lot of promises by the Muhammad Ali Jinnah, by the creators, what they call it, the forefather of Pakistan. So unfortunately, currently the Balochistan is looked at much. They don't have any conflict resolution approach. They are not willing to mediate it. Okay. They don't allow internationally and national actors to talk about the rule of law. And more importantly, what has gone wrong in some 2 years? The political process was engineered at the extreme level.
You've made your point. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, Sanawala. I just want to give a final question, if I could let you finish off the program. Ayesha, what is the path to peace here? How do we break the cycle of violence?
You have to have dialogue, which is important. And this is what the state does not understand. What I was talking...
No, it understands if the state can get away with violence, it will get away with violence at all costs. It is an inherently violent and oppressive institution.
About the economy of conflict. There are the militants on the one hand, but there are people who run the government on the other, who are actually the beneficiaries of this conflict. And that is also important to look at. They are the people who are probably encouraging other other members of the state not to look at political dialogue. Political dialogue is central. But unfortunately, I think even time has run out of even that. because there is so much of violence there.
And unfortunately, we are out of time for today's program. But thank you so much to all our guests. We've been listening to Ayesha Siddiqa, Rashid Waji Janjua, and Sanawala Baloch. And thank you too for watching. You can see the program.
All right. See ya.